Laura Bennett walked down the long corridor of Nexus Tech's headquarters, her heels clicking softly against the marble floor. It was almost midnight, but she didn't mind staying late. As the CEO of one of the most innovative tech companies in San Francisco, Laura often found herself working odd hours to keep up with the demands of running such a large organization. Tonight, however, she wasn't focused on emails or reports. Instead, she was preparing for an important international merger with a German firm that could redefine Nexus Tech's position in the global market. The building was mostly empty now, except for the hum of computers and the occasional flicker of fluorescent lights above. Most employees had gone home hours ago, leaving behind only the night crew, the security guards patrolling the premises and the janitors tidying up after another busy day. Laura paused for a moment outside the large windows lining the hallway, gazing out at the city skyline glittering under the moonlight. She took a deep breath, trying to clear her mind before heading back to her office. As she turned around to continue walking, something unusual caught her attention. A sound coming from the janitor's closet on the 45th floor. At first, she thought it might just be the usual clatter of cleaning tools or maybe someone moving supplies around. But as she drew closer, she realized it wasn't just noise. It was speech. Someone inside the closet was talking. Not in English, but in French. Curious, Laura stopped and listened more closely. The voice belonged to Ethan Klein, one of the janitors who worked evenings at Nexus Tech. She'd seen him around before, always quiet and reserved, going about his duties without drawing much attention to himself. He seemed like any other hard-working employee, doing what needed to be done to earn a living. But tonight there was something different about him. Oui, je comprends, Ethan said clearly into his phone, his tone calm and confident. Then, without missing a beat, he switched languages entirely. This time, he spoke in Mandarin, the words flowing smoothly as if they were second nature to him. Laura blinked in disbelief. Was this really happening? She leaned slightly against the door frame, making sure not to make any noise that would alert him to her presence. Ethan continued, speaking, switching between languages every few minutes. After Mandarin came Spanish, then Arabic, followed by Russian. Each transition was seamless, as though he had been speaking these languages all his life. Laura couldn't help but marvel at the ease with which he moved from one tongue to another. His pronunciation was impeccable, and his vocabulary appeared extensive enough to handle complex conversations in each language. Her curiosity grew stronger with every passing second. Who was this man? How had he learned so many languages? And why was someone with such incredible talent working as a janitor? Questions raced through her mind as she watched him sort cleaning supplies while muttering instructions to himself in Italian. When he transitioned into Japanese, Laura finally decided she had to know more. She stepped back quietly, careful not to disturb him, and made her way back to her office. Her thoughts were swirling with possibilities. Could Ethan's skills be useful to Nexus Tech? If he could speak 9 languages fluently, surely there must be a way to put those abilities to work in a more impactful role within the company. The idea excited her, but she also felt a pang of guilt. How had she, and everyone else at Nexus Tech, overlooked someone so talented for so long? Sitting at her desk, Laura pulled up Ethan's employee file on her computer. There wasn't much. Information beyond the basics: name, age, job title, and contact details. Nothing indicated his extraordinary linguistic abilities. She frowned, realizing how easy it was for people like Ethan to slip through the cracks unnoticed. In a world obsessed with resumes and credentials, true potential often went unrecognized unless someone took the time to look deeper. Determined to learn more, Laura resolved to speak with Ethan personally. She wanted to understand his story, to find out how he had acquired such a remarkable skill set, and to explore whether there might be a place for him in a role better suited to his talents. For now, though, she let him finish his shift undisturbed, content to wait until morning to confront him with her discovery. As she packed up her things and headed toward the elevator, Laura couldn't shake the feeling that she had stumbled upon something extraordinary. Ethan Klein wasn't just a janitor, he was a hidden gem waiting to be unearthed. And if anyone could bring out the best in people, it was Laura Bennett. After all, Finding untapped potential and nurturing it was one of the things she did best. The ride down to the lobby gave her time to reflect on everything she had witnessed. She thought about the countless individuals who passed through companies like Nexus Tech every day, their unique gifts and talents going unrecognized because no one bothered to ask the right questions. Perhaps Ethan's story would serve as a reminder that opportunity could come from the most unexpected places, if you were willing to listen. When Laura finally stepped out into the cool night air, she felt invigorated. Tomorrow would mark the beginning of something new, not just for Ethan but for Nexus Tech as well. Little did she know her decision to investigate further would set off a chain of events that would change both their lives forever. For now, though, she allowed herself a small smile as she climbed into her car. The city still buzzed with energy despite the late hour, its streets alive with possibility. Just like Ethan Klein, Laura reminded herself. Sometimes all it took was paying attention to discover the extraordinary hiding in plain sight. The next morning, Ethan Klein arrived at Nexus Tech feeling uneasy. He had no idea what to expect when Laura Bennett summoned him to her office. All he knew was that it couldn't be good. Maybe someone had complained about how loudly he spoke last night while practicing his languages. Or perhaps he'd accidentally left a mess in one of the conference rooms. Whatever it was, Ethan braced himself for the worst as he made his way to the executive floor. When he reached Laura's office, he hesitated outside the door. Her assistant, a friendly young woman named Claire, smiled reassuringly and gestured for him to go inside. Taking a deep breath, Ethan knocked softly before entering. The room was spacious and well lit, with large windows overlooking the city. Laura sat behind her desk looking as composed and confident as ever. She motioned for Ethan to take a seat. "Good morning, Mr. Klein," she said warmly, her tone putting him slightly at ease. "Thank you for coming up here on such short notice." Ethan nodded, gripping his mop handle tightly. "Of course, Ms. Bennett. Is everything okay?" Laura leaned forward slightly, her expression thoughtful. "Actually, I wanted to talk to you about something I overheard last night. Do you mind if I ask, how many languages do you speak?" Ethan froze, his heart skipping a beat. Had she really heard him? And if so, why did it matter? 9, he replied hesitantly. "But I'm still learning more." Laura's eyes widened slightly, though she tried to hide her astonishment. 9 languages, that's impressive. How did you manage to learn so many? Ethan shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Talking about himself wasn't something he enjoyed, especially not with the CEO of the company. But something in Laura's demeanor encouraged him to open up. "I've always been interested in languages," he began slowly. "Growing up, my neighborhood was pretty diverse, so I picked up bits and pieces from friends and neighbors. Later, I studied linguistics in college, and after graduation, I started teaching myself online. It's kind of become a hobby." "A hobby?" Laura raised an eyebrow, clearly impressed. "That's quite an accomplishment for a hobby. Most people struggle to master even one foreign language." Ethan shrugged modestly. "It's just something I enjoy doing. Helps pass the time, you know?" Laura nodded, but her mind was racing. She couldn't believe what she was hearing. Here was a man who could communicate effortlessly in 9 different languages, yet he spent his days cleaning floors. It didn't make sense. There had to be a way to utilize his talents more effectively. "Mr. Klein," she said after a moment, "have you ever considered applying those skills in a professional setting? Something beyond janitorial work?" Ethan blinked, caught off guard by the question. "Not really," he admitted. "After college, I applied for a few jobs, but nothing worked out. Cleaning pays the bills, and honestly, it's steady work. I didn't think anyone would care about my language skills." "Well, I care," Laura said firmly. "In fact, I think your abilities could be incredibly valuable to this company. We're about to enter negotiations with a German firm, and having someone like you on board could make all the difference." Ethan stared at her, unsure whether to feel excited or overwhelmed. "You mean, you want me to help with the merger?" "Yes, exactly," Laura replied. "What would you say if I offered you a position where your skills could truly shine? I'm thinking head of global communications, a new role we can create specifically for you." For a moment, Ethan didn't respond. The idea seemed too good to be true. Just yesterday, he was mopping floors and wondering if he'd ever get the chance to use his knowledge in a meaningful way. Now, the CEO of Nexus Tech was offering him a dream job. It felt surreal. I don't know what to say, Ethan stammered finally. Are you sure about this? I mean, I've never done anything like that before. That's why I'll mentor you, Laura assured him. You won't be alone. I'll make sure you have access to training and resources to succeed. Trust me, Ethan. You have potential. And sometimes all it takes is one person believing in you to change everything. Ethan swallowed hard, trying to process everything Laura was saying. Part of him wanted to jump at the opportunity, but another part worried he might fail. What if he couldn't live up to her expectations? What if others resented him for getting promoted so quickly? Seeing the hesitation in his eyes, Laura softened her tone. Listen, I understand this is a big step. But think about it. Imagine being able to use your passion for languages every day, making connections across cultures, and helping our company grow globally. Isn't that worth taking a chance on? Ethan nodded slowly, feeling a spark of hope ignite within him. Maybe Laura was right. Maybe this was his chance to prove himself, to show everyone, including himself, that he was capable of more than he'd ever imagined. All right, he said quietly. I'll do it. Laura smiled, visibly pleased. Excellent. Welcome aboard, Ethan. Let's get started. Over the next hour, they discussed the details of his new role and the responsibilities it would entail. Laura explained that he'd be leading the communication efforts for the upcoming merger, working closely with both teams to ensure smooth interactions. She also promised to provide support whenever he needed it, emphasizing that his success was important to her. As Ethan left Laura's office, he couldn't help but feel a mixworthiness. For years, he'd doubted his own abilities, convinced that his dreams were out of reach. But now, thanks to Laura's belief in him, he dared to hope again. Back in her office, Laura watched Ethan walk away, a satisfied smile playing on her lips. She knew promoting him wouldn't be without challenges. There would undoubtedly be skepticism and resistance from some quarters, but she was confident it was the right decision. Talent like Ethan's shouldn't go unnoticed, and giving him this opportunity wasn't just good for him. It was good for Nexus Tech, too. Little did either of them know, however, that their journey was only beginning. Promoting Ethan would set off a ripple effect throughout the company, bringing both triumphs and trials that neither could have anticipated. Ethan Klein's first week as head of global communications was a whirlwind of activity. Laura Bennett had wasted no time introducing him to the executive team, explaining his new role and why she believed he was the right person for the job. At first, Ethan felt out of place in his freshly tailored suit, sitting among people who had spent years climbing the corporate ladder. But Laura's confidence in him gave him strength, and he resolved to prove himself worthy of her trust. His primary responsibility was preparing for the upcoming merger with the German firm, which required extensive coordination between Nexus Tech's leadership and their counterparts in Berlin. Meetings were scheduled daily, and Ethan quickly found himself immersed in discussions about logistics, legal agreements, and cultural differences. His ability to switch between languages seamlessly made him an invaluable asset, earning nods of approval from both sides. One afternoon, Ethan led a video conference call with the German team. As he greeted them in fluent German, their faces lit up with surprise and appreciation. They asked questions about technical details, market strategies, and potential challenges, and Ethan responded confidently, ensuring everyone understood each other clearly. When misunderstandings arose, he stepped in to clarify, translating not just words but also the intent behind them. Laura watched from the sidelines, impressed by how naturally Ethan adapted to his new role. She noticed how he paid attention to nuances, pausing when someone seemed confused, rephrasing complex ideas or using humor to lighten tense moments. It wasn't just his language skills that shone, it was his empathy and adaptability. These qualities helped bridge gaps between cultures and personalities, fostering collaboration where there might otherwise have been friction. Word of Ethan's success spread quickly within Nexus Tech. Employees began referring to him as the linguist or our secret weapon. Even those who initially doubted his qualifications warmed up to him after witnessing his contributions firsthand. Colleagues started seeking his advice on international projects, knowing he could provide insights others couldn't. However, not everyone shared this enthusiasm. Samantha Brooks, the ambitious head of marketing, viewed Ethan's rapid rise with suspicion. To her, his promotion felt like an insult, a reminder that hard work and seniority didn't always guarantee recognition. She resented the attention he received, especially since she had been angling for a leadership position herself. Samantha decided to act. During a company-wide meeting, she subtly questioned Ethan's experience, implying that his lack of formal business training might hinder the merger process. Her comments drew murmurs of agreement from a few attendees, but Laura intervened immediately. "Let me remind everyone," Laura said firmly, addressing the room, "that talent comes in many forms. Ethan's unique skill set is exactly what we need right now. If anyone doubts his capabilities, I encourage you to observe his work closely. You'll see why I made the decision I did." Her defense silenced the critics, at least temporarily, but Samantha wasn't ready to give up. Behind closed doors, she began gathering information to undermine Ethan's credibility. She dug through old records looking for any mistake he might have made as a janitor, no matter how minor. She even reached out to former colleagues, hoping to uncover dirt that could tarnish his reputation. Meanwhile, Ethan remained focused on his tasks, oblivious to Samantha's scheming. With Laura's guidance, he attended workshops and seminars to improve his understanding of corporate dynamics. He learned about negotiation tactics, conflict resolution, and strategic planning, gradually gaining the confidence to navigate complex situations. Laura became more than just a mentor to Ethan. She became an advocate. She introduced him to influential figures within the industry, encouraging him to build connections that would benefit both him and Nexus Tech. She also ensured he had access to resources like language coaches and cultural consultants, helping him refine his already impressive abilities. As weeks turned into months, Ethan's impact on the company became undeniable. Under his leadership, communication barriers dissolved, paving the way for smoother operations and stronger partnerships. The German merger progressed faster than expected, thanks largely to his efforts. Executives on both sides praised his diplomacy and professionalism, cementing his status as a key player in the project. Despite these achievements, Ethan still struggled with self-doubt. Late at night, after everyone else had gone home, he'd sit alone in his office, replaying conversations in his head and wondering if he truly belonged in such a prestigious role. What if he made a mistake? What if others realized he wasn't as capable as they thought? On one such evening, Laura stopped by his office unexpectedly. Seeing him hunched over his desk, surrounded by papers and open laptops, she knocked gently on the doorframe. "Still working?" she asked, stepping inside. Ethan looked up, startled. "Oh, hi, Ms. Bennett. Yeah, just reviewing some notes for tomorrow's meeting." Laura pulled up a chair and sat beside him. "You know, Ethan, it's okay to feel uncertain sometimes. Every leader goes through that. But don't let fear hold you back. Look at everything you've accomplished so far. You've earned your place here." Her words struck a chord with Ethan. For the first time, he allowed himself to acknowledge his progress. He thought about the countless hours he'd spent studying languages, the sacrifices he'd made to pursue his passion, and the opportunities Laura had given him to shine. Maybe he wasn't perfect, but he was growing, and that mattered. "Thank you," he said sincerely. "I wouldn't be here without your support." Laura smiled warmly. "And Nexus Tech wouldn't be where it is today without you. Keep going, Ethan. You're doing great." With renewed determination, Ethan threw himself into his work, embracing challenges instead of fearing them. He knew there would still be obstacles ahead, but he also knew he wasn't alone. Laura believed in him, and slowly, he was starting to believe in himself too. Unbeknownst to either of them, however, trouble loomed on the horizon. Samantha's resentment simmered beneath the surface, waiting for the right moment to boil over. And when it did, it would test Ethan's resilience and Laura's faith in ways neither of them anticipated. The day had finally arrived. The critical summit in Tokyo aimed at finalizing the merger between Nexus Tech and its German partner. Ethan Klein stood outside the conference room, taking deep breaths to calm his nerves. This was the biggest challenge he'd faced since becoming head of global communications. The stakes were incredibly high. If negotiations failed, months of effort would go down the drain, along with millions of dollars in potential revenue. Laura Bennett placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "You've got this, Ethan," she said softly. "Just stay focused and trust your instincts." Ethan nodded, grateful for her support. He adjusted his tie and walked into the room, ready to face whatever came his way. The meeting started smoothly. Enough. Both teams exchanged pleasantries discussing shared goals and mutual benefits. But as they delved deeper into specifics, tensions began to rise. Cultural differences became apparent almost immediately. The German team valued directness and efficiency, often cutting straight to the point without much preamble. The Japanese executives, on the other hand, preferred a more nuanced approach, emphasizing harmony and respect above all else. Misunderstandings quickly escalated. When the German CEO suggested streamlining decision-making processes by reducing consultation times, several Japanese representatives frowned, interpreting the comment as dismissive of their traditions. Voices grew louder as each side tried to assert its perspective, and soon the atmosphere turned hostile. Ethan watched silently, observing the growing divide. He knew this was his moment to step in. Leaning forward, he addressed the room in fluent Japanese, apologizing for any offense caused and explaining the importance of balancing efficiency with cultural sensitivity. His words resonated with the Japanese team, who visibly relaxed. Then, switching seamlessly to German, he reassured the German executives that their concerns were valid, but urged them to consider alternative solutions that respected local customs. By speaking both languages fluently, Ethan bridged the gap between the two groups. He translated not just words but emotions, helping each side see the other's point of view. Slowly but surely, the tension eased, replaced by a spirit of cooperation. Over the next few hours, Ethan guided the discussion, ensuring everyone felt heard and understood. Whenever disagreements arose, he intervened diplomatically, offering compromises that satisfied both parties. By the end of the day, significant progress had been made toward finalizing the merger agreement. Back in San Francisco, news of Ethan's success spread rapidly throughout Nexus Tech. Employees gathered around water coolers and coffee machines, sharing stories of how the linguist had saved the deal in Tokyo. Even skeptics couldn't deny his contributions. Executives praised his ability to navigate complex cultural dynamics, calling him an indispensable asset to the company. Samantha Brooks, however, refused to join the chorus of praise. Watching Ethan receive accolades only fueled her resentment. She seethed quietly, plotting ways to expose flaws in his performance. If she could find evidence of incompetence, or better yet, misconduct, she might still regain control of the narrative. Her chance came sooner than expected. During a routine audit, Samantha discovered discrepancies in some expense reports filed by Ethan during his trip to Tokyo. While the amounts involved were small and likely innocent mistakes, she seized the opportunity to twist the situation against him. Gathering the documents, she drafted a scathing email accusing Ethan of financial mismanagement and sent it anonymously to key stakeholders within the company. Within days, rumors began circulating about Ethan's alleged misconduct. Shareholders demanded answers and pressure mounted on Laura Bennett to address the issue publicly. Caught off guard by the allegations, Laura called Ethan into her office to discuss the matter. "Ethan, I need you to be honest with me," she said, laying the documents on her desk. "Do you know anything about these discrepancies?" Ethan examined the papers carefully, his heart sinking as he realized what had happened. "These are minor errors," he explained. I must have overlooked them when submitting my reports. It wasn't intentional, I promise. Laura studied him closely, searching for any sign of deception. Finding none, she nodded. I believe you, but we need to act quickly to clear your name. Do you have receipts or records to verify these expenses? Yes, absolutely, Ethan replied. I'll gather everything right away. Together, they reviewed every detail of the Tokyo trip, compiling irrefutable proof of Ethan's innocence. Receipts matched the disputed amounts, and bank statements confirmed legitimate transactions. By the time they finished, there was no doubt that the accusations were baseless. But Samantha wasn't done yet. Sensing her plan unraveling, she decided to escalate matters further. At the next executive board meeting, she presented her case, directly accusing Ethan of deliberately mishandling funds to cover personal costs. Her tone dripped with venom, and she avoided making eye contact with him as she spoke. Ethan listened quietly, his jaw tightening with anger and frustration. When it was his turn to respond, he rose from his seat and addressed the room, not just in English but in fluent German, impressing the international members of the board. I understand your concerns, he began calmly, but I can assure you these claims are false. Here is the evidence proving my innocence. He handed out copies of the verified documents, then proceeded to explain each discrepancy in meticulous detail. Switching back to English, he added, If anyone doubts my integrity, I welcome further investigation. His composure and transparency silenced the room. Even Samantha looked uneasy, realizing her scheme was falling apart. Laura stepped in, praising Ethan's professionalism and urging the board to focus on facts rather than speculation. In the end, the allegations crumbled under scrutiny. Samantha's motives were questioned, and her credibility suffered a severe blow. Though she denied orchestrating the attack, her involvement became increasingly obvious. Eventually, the board voted unanimously to terminate her employment. For Ethan, the ordeal was exhausting but ultimately rewarding. Clearing his name reinforced his standing within the company and earned him even greater respect from colleagues. Laura, too, emerged stronger, reaffirming her commitment to supporting talented individuals regardless of their backgrounds. As the dust settled, Ethan reflected on the experience. Challenges like this reminded him how far he'd come, and how much farther he still had to go. With Laura's guidance and his own determination, he was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. Little did he know, however, that the toughest test of all was yet to come. The fallout from Samantha Brooks's accusations had left Nexus Tech shaken, but Ethan Klein emerged stronger than ever. Though he had proven his innocence, the experience lingered in his mind like an unresolved shadow. He couldn't shake the feeling that someone so determined to bring him down might try again. Still, he pushed forward, focusing on his work and the ongoing merger negotiations. Laura Bennett remained steadfast by his side, ensuring he had everything he needed to succeed. But Samantha wasn't ready to give up. Losing her job hadn't extinguished her bitterness. If anything, it fueled her desire for revenge. She spent weeks gathering information, digging through old files and reaching out to former colleagues who shared her resentment toward Ethan. Her goal was clear: expose a flaw in his performance that would discredit him once and for all. One evening, while reviewing archived emails, Samantha stumbled upon something she believed could be her golden ticket: an internal memo written by Ethan during his first month as head of global communications. In it, he had outlined potential risks associated with the German merger, including cultural clashes and logistical challenges. At the time, the document had been well received, praised for its thoroughness and foresight. However, Samantha saw an opportunity to twist its meaning. She drafted a new narrative claiming that Ethan had secretly opposed the merger from the start and had only taken the role to sabotage it. According to her fabricated story, the Tokyo Summit's success was merely a facade, a desperate attempt to cover up deeper issues within the partnership. Armed with this distorted version of events, Samantha leaked the memo to key shareholders and members of the press, hoping to spark outrage. When the allegations surfaced publicly, chaos erupted. News outlets picked up the story, painting Ethan as a fraud who had manipulated his way into a leadership position. Employees whispered behind closed doors, unsure whom to believe. Even some of Ethan's supporters began questioning whether they had misjudged him. Ethan felt blindsided. One moment he had been riding high on the success of the Tokyo summit. The next, he was facing public scrutiny and doubt. He locked himself in his office, staring blankly at the headlines flashing across his computer screen. How could things have unraveled so quickly? And how could he possibly fight back against lies that seemed so convincing? Laura found him there hours later, slumped over his desk with dark circles under his eyes. She didn't say anything at first, just placed a comforting hand on his shoulder and waited for him to speak. "They think I betrayed them," Ethan said finally, his voice heavy with frustration. "Everything I've worked for, gone because of someone else's lies." "We'll fix this," Laura replied firmly. "Together, but we need to act fast." Over the next few days, Laura and Ethan combed through every piece of evidence they could find, piecing together a defense against Samantha's claims. They revisited the original memo, highlighting sections where Ethan had not only identified risks but also proposed solutions. They reached out to colleagues and partners involved in the merger, asking them to confirm Ethan's contributions and integrity. Most importantly, they prepared a presentation for the executive board, a detailed rebuttal designed to dismantle Samantha's accusations point by point. When the day of the meeting arrived, tension filled the boardroom. Executives sat stiffly in their chairs, exchanging wary glances as Ethan stood at the front of the room. Laura watched from the sidelines, her presence a quiet source of strength. "Ladies and gentlemen," Ethan began, his voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "I understand why you're concerned. If I were in your position, I'd want answers too. So let me address these allegations directly." He started with the leaked memo, projecting it onto the screen behind him. "This document was written to identify potential challenges and offer solutions, not to undermine the merger. Here's what I proposed." As he spoke, he walked the board through each section of the memo, explaining his thought process and demonstrating how his recommendations had been implemented successfully. Then, switching tactics, Ethan turned to the heart of Samantha's attack. Using his multilingual skills, he addressed the board in German, speaking directly to the representatives from the German firm. "Our partnership is strong because we've worked together honestly and openly," he said. "These accusations are false, and I ask you to trust in our shared vision for the future." His words resonated deeply with the German executives, who nodded in agreement. One of them even stood up to commend Ethan for his transparency and dedication. Encouraged by their support, Ethan continued, presenting testimonials from colleagues and partners who vouched for his character and competence. Finally, he confronted Samantha's motives head-on. "I don't know why Ms. Brooks feels the need to attack me," he admitted, "but I do know this. My loyalty to Nexus Tech has never wavered. Everything I've done has been for the good of this company." By the end of the presentation, the mood in the room had shifted dramatically. Doubts dissolved, replaced by admiration for Ethan's resilience and professionalism. The board unanimously dismissed Samantha's claims, reaffirming their trust in Ethan's leadership. Outside the boardroom, news of the exoneration spread quickly. Employees cheered Ethan's vindication, and shareholders expressed relief that the merger remained on track. For many, the incident served as a reminder of the importance of integrity and teamwork in overcoming adversity. Ethan, however, felt drained. The battle had taken a toll on him emotionally and mentally. That night, after everyone else had gone home, he sat alone in his office, reflecting on everything he had endured. He thought about the sacrifices he had made, the challenges he had faced, and the lessons he had learned along the way. A soft knock on the door interrupted his thoughts. It was Laura, carrying 2 cups of coffee. She handed one to him and sat down across the desk. "You did well today," she said simply. "Better than anyone could have expected." Ethan managed a small smile. "Thanks to you. I couldn't have done it without your support." Laura shook her head. "No, Ethan, You did this yourself. All I did was remind you of your own strength. Her words stayed with him long after she left. For the first time since the scandal broke, Ethan allowed himself to feel proud. Not just of his achievements, but of the person he had become. He realized that setbacks were inevitable, but they didn't define him. What mattered was how he responded to them, and how he grew as a result. As dawn broke over the city skyline, Ethan made a silent vow to keep pushing forward. No matter what challenges lay ahead, he knew he had the tools and the people to face them. Little did he know, however, that the journey was far from over. New opportunities and new trials waited just around the corner. Months passed since the scandal involving Samantha Brooks, and life at Nexus Tech began to settle into a new rhythm. Ethan Klein had emerged from the ordeal stronger than ever, earning not just respect, but admiration from colleagues and executives alike. His role as head of global communications became even more pivotal as the company expanded its reach into new markets. With each success, Ethan's confidence grew, and he started to see himself not just as someone who spoke multiple languages, but as a leader capable of uniting people across cultures. Laura Bennett continued to mentor Ethan, guiding him through challenges and encouraging him to take on greater responsibilities. Together, they worked tirelessly to ensure the merger with the German firm was a resounding success. Under their leadership, Nexus Tech thrived, becoming one of the most innovative and globally connected companies in its industry. Employees looked up to Ethan as a symbol of resilience and potential, a reminder that talent could come from unexpected places if given the chance to shine. One evening, after a particularly productive meeting, Laura invited Ethan to join her on the rooftop terrace of the Nexus Tech building. It was a rare moment of calm amidst their busy schedules, and the view of the city lights stretching out before them felt almost magical. "You've come so far," Laura said, leaning against the railing. "Do you remember when I first promoted you? You were nervous, unsure if you belonged here." Ethan chuckled softly. "How could I forget? I thought I'd wake up and realize it was all a dream." "Well, it wasn't a dream," Laura replied, with a smile. "And look at you now. You've transformed this company and yourself in ways I never imagined." Ethan gazed out at the skyline, reflecting on how much had changed. "I couldn't have done any of it without your support. You believed in me when no one else did." "That's what leaders do," Laura said simply. "We see potential and help it grow. But let's be honest, you did the hard work. You faced every challenge head-on, even when it felt impossible." Her words struck a chord deep within Ethan. He realized that while Laura had opened the door for him, it was his determination and perseverance that had carried him through. Every obstacle, the skepticism, the accusations, the self-doubt, had shaped him into the person standing there today. As they stood side by side, enjoying the peaceful night, Ethan thought about the ripple effect his journey had created. Employees across Nexus Tech were inspired by his story, reminded that opportunities could arise when least expected. Some began pursuing passions they had long abandoned, while others sought ways to contribute beyond their assigned roles. Even outside the company, news of Ethan's rise spread, sparking conversations about recognizing hidden talents and fostering inclusivity in workplaces. But perhaps the most profound change occurred within Ethan himself. No longer burdened by fear or insecurity, he embraced his identity as both a janitor turned executive and a bridge between worlds. He used his platform to advocate for diversity and inclusion, organizing workshops and initiatives aimed at empowering underrepresented voices within the company. His efforts earned him accolades, including the prestigious Employee of the Year award, an honor he humbly accepted on behalf of everyone who dared to dream bigger. Despite his achievements, Ethan remained grounded. He often visited the janitorial staff during breaks, sharing stories and offering encouragement. To him, they were more than coworkers. They represented where he had come from and reminded him to stay true to himself. Many of them admired him, not just for his success but for never forgetting his roots. Laura watched Ethan's transformation with pride. She knew she had made the right decision that fateful night when she overheard him speaking 9 languages in the janitor's closet. Promoting him hadn't just been a smart business move. It had reinforced her belief in the power of giving people opportunities to grow. In a world obsessed with titles and credentials, Ethan's story served as a powerful reminder that true potential often lay beneath the surface, waiting to be discovered. Years later, when asked about his unlikely rise, Ethan would simply smile and say, "Sometimes all it takes is one person believing in you to change everything." And for Laura and Ethan, that belief had changed not only their lives but the future of Nexus Tech itself. The company continued to flourish, driven by a culture of innovation, collaboration, and inclusivity. Its global partnerships strengthened, fueled by Ethan's ability to connect with people from all walks of life. Laura's vision of nurturing untapped talent became a cornerstone of Nexus Tech's mission, inspiring other organizations to follow suit. For Ethan, the journey was far from over. There would always be new challenges to face and goals to achieve. But he approached them with a sense of purpose and gratitude, knowing he had already accomplished more than he ever dreamed possible. He had proven that with hard work, determination, and a little bit of faith, anything was achievable. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow over the city, Ethan turned to Laura. "Thank you," he said sincerely, "for everything." Laura smiled, her eyes reflecting the same warmth and hope that had guided them both through countless trials. "You're welcome, Ethan. Now go keep changing the world, one language at a time." With that, they returned to the bustling office, ready to tackle whatever came next. For Nexus Tech and for Ethan Klein, the best was yet to come.